Hi, this is Barry here again, and in this video I'm going to look at the area of doing a grass budget. So if I click in here, one of the things, the software will keep all of your old budgets in place. So if you had a budget for last spring, you can always go back in and have a look to see how you did versus your target for last year. You can use the copy budget to copy a budget forward to maybe copy last spring's budget forward to next spring when the time comes. So save yourself some data entry. But if I want to do I have two existing budgets here, but if I show you how to start a new grass budget, I just click here. I would recommend you give the budget a name, so you could call it Spring 2011 or First Budget Attempt or whatever you want, something to remind yourself about that particular budget, what's different about other budgets. You can pick the start month and the start year, the end month, the end year. The program does expect a budget to be a maximum of 52 weeks long. What happens is if you say you want to start in March 2011, it picks the first Monday in March, and it does a weekly budget from Monday to Monday every week. It picks up the total area from the total area of paddocks in the grazing block. This is the 1500 is the residual that you're grazing down to. In Ireland there's a number of kind of standard growth figures for different parts of the country, and we'll pick one of them as the default growth from week to week going forward. If you're using the software in other countries, you can say use the Moorpark figures as a default, but then you can change your projected growth based on the projected growth you expect in your own country. You might have purely spring milkers on the grazing platform, which is quite common, or you might have autumn milkers as well. You just basically tick. If you have dry cows on the grazing platform, you can tick them, and you obviously, the more stock types you tick, the more you have to describe the projected stock numbers for each week during the budget period. So when you've all of that down at the bottom, you just click on create budget, and it creates a blank budget and you fill in all of the boxes. So what I'm going to do, rather than creating a new budget, I'm just going to go back to my list of budgets, and I'm going to edit or view one of the budgets I've already done. Now this one is described as the active budget, which means that it's the one that we're working on at the moment. And if your discussion group want to have if you have an online discussion group created where you are allowing other farmers or other farm advisors to look at some of your grass data, they will always pick up the active budget rather than redundant or older budgets. So if I click on edit view, now you will be coming back in here on a weekly basis almost every time you do a grass measurement or grass cover. You'll always come back in to see how that latest grass cover has an impact on the budget you've already got in place. But if I click on to edit view, and what we have here is any of these lines where we feel you need a little bit of help, like everywhere else in the software we have an eye symbol. So across the top you have the hectares that you plan. So you'll notice, because we said we're going to do a budget from March 2011, so the 7th of March is the first Monday in March, and we have each column represents a week later. So we go from the 7th to the 14th to 21st and so forth. So the first thing we'll do, and again that's copied in, the software knows that we have 24.32 hectares of land in the grazing block. So it's putting that in automatically across the whole way. And if you come over here to see on the 25th of the 4th, we're actually saying in that time we expect to have 15 hectares of grass in the grazing block, because obviously between that day and that day we've decided to take some ground out for silage. So there's less land left for grazing. I'll show you how to use the target cover in a minute, but the projected curve, I'm actually doing this budget on the 1st of March, so I'm doing a budget that's going to start for next week. So what I've done here is I've said, look, I'm expecting, or I'm hoping, that the cover next Monday is going to be 2000. Now when we get to next Monday and we actually do a cover, an actual farm measurement next Monday, when we enter that cover into the software, it'll update this projected cover automatically. The measured cover will slot in. These are all blanks at the moment, but if we do a budget now at the start of March, as we measure every Monday, as we go through March and April and May, all of the measured covers will slot in here automatically. You can see the growths that we have in there. These are projected growths for this time of year based on standard figures in different parts of Ireland. Again, if you're using the software outside Ireland, you can type in whatever growths your local advisory service would recommend for that time of year. So you can literally click in there and type in the figures that you want. The big thing, obviously, the main line, the main two lines that you have to enter on. In this example, we only have spring milkers. We haven't bothered with the autumn milkers and the dry cows and the young stock. We just activated. We just said in this particular grazing block we only have spring milkers. So obviously this is where you have to do most of your data entry, so that I can use the tab key to go from box to box. So I'm saying I've started off from 40 cows. I'm next to the second week of the budget. I'm going to be at 50. I'm increasing my stocking level every week as the cows calve, and I'm kind of peaking at 70 cows. And then the grass intake is obviously the second most important line, because then, you know, on the 7th of March, we're expecting to get a grass intake of around 10 kilos. So that's what we're hoping. And then as we go through the spring, we're hoping to increase the grass intake and then peak at a grass intake of 16 kilos of dry matter per day. Now those two lines are the key lines. Obviously the other line that's significant is what area, because obviously as you reduce the area of land, you have a different situation in terms of the dynamics of the grass growing and the cows consuming the grass. So you'll notice as well that across the top I have 8 weeks on each screen. So to go on to the next part, to go on to the following 8 weeks, I just click on, notice the way up here, the last week is the 25th to the 4th. And if I click down here on view next, what it does is it just jumps forward to the following chunk of time. So you'll notice that the two screens are tied together by the 25th of the 4th. So you can see the way that I have my 15 here, and I have my 15 kilos of, or my 15 hectares of land, because some of it is being kept out for long-term silage in that period. And you can see here my growth going across. So as I'm going into the main growing part of the year, my growth is heading up towards 100 per day. And you can see I have my 70 cows going right through that 3-month budget period that I'm interested in. And you can see as well that I've carried again, I find that I use the tab key to go from box to box, and then I enter my numbers. So I can click in there, and if for any reason I want to say, look, I'm expecting that to be 17 instead of 16, I can change it there as required. So what you do is, it's really a case of putting in the number of cows, the grass intake. You obviously have the option to put in the meal as well. If you go to the trouble of describing what meal you think you will feed for each week during the budget period, we'll give you a kind of a total tonnage of meal that we think you'll need in that 3-month budget period. And some farmers find that useful in terms of planning purchases of meal. Similarly with the silage, you can describe the silage intake that you think you will have for each week of the budget period. So we'll give you a total dry matter of silage that you're likely to need for that 3-month period. So when you have your data in, and again the key bits would be the number of cows, the grass intake. Obviously just check that your growth figures look reasonable for your area, so you might change those growth figures the whole way across. Check that your land, the amount of land that you expect to be grazing, is going to be reasonable at each week during the budget period as well. And when that's done, just click on update save. And if I want to go back to the initial 8 weeks, I can click on view previous. So that's the first period. I'm back to my 7th of March again. Now if I scroll down, you'll see here then this is the projected cover. Remember we said that next week on the 7th of March we're going to start off at 2,000. So based on the level of grass growth and grass demand, what's going to happen over the following month or so is that my overall covers are going to go down, but they're not going down that far. They're not going to go down less than 1,900. And then obviously as we come into the main growing part of the season, the covers start to increase dramatically. Then we decide to take land out for silage, so the thing slows down a bit, but it increases momentum again as we later on, as we go further into the main growing part of the year. So what you do is you look at that curve and you basically say to yourself, that's what it's projecting the covers will be for the next 3 months starting next Monday, and is that reasonable and is that acceptable? Am I going too low at the start of April? If it's reasonable to go as low as 1,900, then you say that's fine. If you figure out that, well, look, that is way too low, then you have to have less cows eating less grass, so that you stop the grass going too low. So you look at that and you make a call as to whether that's a reasonable pattern of covers for the 3-month period. Now I'm actually doing a budget here for a spring period. Now, in most cases, the budget is really more applicable to the autumn period, because what you're trying to achieve, obviously, is that as you come into the autumn of the grazing season and the grass is starting to slow down, what you're trying to achieve is you want to take cows off the land and reduce the demand per hectare, so that the covers, when you close the farm completely to grazing, the covers will be around, say, 2,000 of total cover, or maybe 500 of available cover. So that will be the initial grazing block for the following spring or calving season. So you have enough grass to get the cows out early the following spring period. So one of the things you would do then, when you're happy that that projection looks reasonable and you're happy with it, there's an option up here at the top. If you look at my target cover, you'll see that they're all still zeros. But what I can do is I can click on this option here where I call Set Target Cover. And what that does is there's a bit of message there telling you what's going on, but it actually copies it makes the projected cover and the target cover the same. So we're basically saying, look, this is the plan. And notice the way I have a red line, which now superimposes my blue line. And that red line will never change. That red line will always stay in that position. It will never move out of that position. But what will happen next week, if you measure your grass next week on the 7th of March, and lo and behold, you discover that your cover has gone way down, and the cover on the farm is 1900, then what will happen is you get a green dot just slotting in here exactly at the 1900 point on the 7th of March, and the whole blue line will then be underneath the red line. So effectively you then have the dilemma to try and figure out, well, how am I going to get my projected line or my blue line back up to meet the red line, which I thought was an acceptable plan to have this week or right now. So the red line becomes your de facto constant line. It stays in that shape, in that position, and you're always trying to get your blue line every week when you do a new measurement, and the actual measurements come in. You can see up here that the measured grass is in green, projections is in blue, and the target is in red. So every week when you do a new measurement, you'll have a green dot appearing along this screen, and wherever the last green dot stops, you'll find that the blue line starts, and you're constantly trying to see if you can get that blue line back to meet the red line. So because the red line is what you thought was a good plan for that period of time. So if I go back up to the top again, just to show you a few other options. This option here, I'm not just going to use it, you can try it yourselves, but if you're doing a budget in the spring period, if you click on that option, it gives you a choice to type in the number of cows that are going to calve each week. So if you have a calving pattern, if you know that in the second week of March you're going to have 12 cows calved in that period, the following week you're going to have 15 cows calved, and the following week you're going to have 20 cows calved, you can click on that option and it'll give you an extra line where you can type in your calving pattern. And from your calving pattern we can estimate the cows that will be milking at the end of each week, and we can also estimate a reasonably good idea on what the grass intake should be for those cows based on the number of weeks that they're calved. So you can try that one yourself when you're ready. It's suitable for the spring calving period. In the autumn budget period it's not something you'd need at all. Sorry, I'm actually getting the two wrong. It's the calving spread is the one I've just talked about. What you can do here in the hide view stock rows, notice the way here that I only have spring milkers. If you suddenly decide when you're in the middle of this budget that you need autumn milkers as well, then you can obviously click on this option and you can choose to include the autumn milkers also. The calving spread is what I was talking about just a few minutes ago. You know, the whole idea of many cows is going to calve each week. Following on from, I don't know whether you've seen the video on the wedge, but it's nice to have a one-page report, because if we can fit everything onto one page, it's nice. So you can experiment with that, print that off and see what the presentation of all the data is. Full-page report is just a more detailed report. Download option, if you want to take the data and you want to work with it further in a spreadsheet, you can download the file and do some further analysis on it. And that's basically a quick overview of how to do the grass budget. Again, key line is how many cows do you have out each week, how much grass are they consuming each week, how much land are they have available to graze each week. From that you work out this graph. Once you're happy with your projections, you set the target cover and you make your red line what you're aiming for, and you're constantly trying to go through that budget period and you're constantly trying to get back on track, so you're always meeting the red line. And as you do your wedges, as you do your covers each week, and as you do your different wedge reports, always keep coming back into the budget and see how what's are you following the plan? Are you following the budget? So we leave it there for that particular exercise.